Today is the first day of December, which of course is leading us into Christmas. We have a long-standing tradition here that in every December Sunday, we always end our service with a Christmas carol instead of the song that we usually sing. So even though Thanksgiving is still leftovers in the refrigerator, we're already into Christmas this year because Thanksgiving spent a long time getting here. It's a glorious time of year, always, because we have the opportunity to pull off of, our masters, the line of masters, a particular focus on the presence of Jesus, which for some of us who were raised in the West, it's more clear. I mean, the life of Christ was always part of our upbringing. Even if we weren't raised Christian, it was just everywhere. Not necessarily deeply understood, but nonetheless, the power was always present. When Swami Kriyananda in 2003, at the end of that year, decided it was time he was called by Master to go to India to establish Ananda's work there. There was a lot of questions about how we would carry this teaching back to its origin point. One of the issues was the Festival of Light, which we'll do in a little while here this morning. And there's a lot of references to Jesus in that ritual. And there was some resistance among both the Ananda people and also the indigenous people of India, so to speak, as to how much of Jesus they really wanted. There's a bad history there with the British and the missionaries and disrespect that unfortunately got associated with Jesus. And so I was talking to Swami about the festival and so on, and I said, well, sir, those of us who grew up in the West had to accept yogis with two bodies and immortal souls and, ancient teachings and all of this. I think it's not too much to ask the Indians to just accept Jesus. I think it's only fair, don't you? And he laughed, of course, meaning that everything that we use to smollen to make smaller our sense of self and our sense of identity, it all has to be overcome. And it's all so trivial compared to what moves us, what really lifts our heart and makes us want to be better. There's this absolute irresistible need within us to find happiness and to find love, to overcome loneliness, to find meaning for life. You can make a list. You see it in every culture, in every age, no matter what the context, that same longing is there. I remember the first time I was in Dubai was actually the country. It was the first time I saw women in burqas, and the ones who didn't have their face covered. We were in a very high-class shopping area, which there is a great many of in Dubai. And it was so interesting to me because the women were dressed in the black robe and I keep touching my face, all that was showing was their face. But the consciousness you could read the consciousness exactly the same. They were just women with all of the natural concerns that women have. And all of this, which is easy to think of as foreign or it had nothing to do. It was just window dressing on the fundamental longing for love, not to be lonely, to find meaning in life, to find happiness. And what all the scriptures and all the teachings of all the masters of every single religion, they're just trying to help us do that, no matter what it looks like. And sometimes it doesn't look like that to us, especially when we start talking about God's will, and especially when we start talking about karma. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've been for 3 months traveling. We were in 7 different countries, and it was a glorious trip in every respect. And moving around as much as we did this time, I don't know how many cities we were in those countries. You don't keep track. It's a perfect opportunity to live in the now. I'm standing here, they put a mic in front of me. I know whether I have to be translated into another language or whether I can just speak English. Somebody tells me what I'm supposed to talk about, and we just go. And we just do it over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, we came back repeatedly. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. And often it was presented to me in terms of what Jesus said. But it was, why do people suffer? It's just the question that is there. And it's either, why do I suffer, which is easier to resolve than why did they suffer? And especially when they appear to be innocent. That's the word that's always used. They're innocent. And so someone like myself who's trying to explain this teaching, I'm in the uncomfortable position of saying maybe they're not innocent, which, trust me, is not a popular teaching. If you're really trying to persuade people, don't start there. But it's really tough, because there are so many things in this world that seem so profoundly unjust, which is why people repudiate spiritual teaching, repudiate religion altogether, repudiate God altogether, because we have a very specific idea of how it's supposed to be, and it's definitely not supposed to be like that, because there's so much injustice in this world. And the answer to it, it's really big answers. You have to take in all kinds of realities, starting with the fact that this isn't the only life that we live, and that there is no such thing as innocent. And even worse than that, much worse, is that if cause and effect, which is as ye sow, so shall ye reap. I don't even have to go over to the word karma. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. If that is true, then what I want to say is, if the law of karma, if cause and effect is true anywhere, it has to be true everywhere. And that's where we really stop. We can sort of get it a little bit here and a little bit there, but what's really being presented to us is, how do we know? Why do I think I'm the one who knows? Where did I get the idea that all these things that I think are just the way it should be? Well, some of them are self-evident. Sympathy, kindness. Why do we even have those feelings? Well, they're innate in us. Well, who put them in us? How did I get here? As one Western philosopher said, it's no more surprising to have been born once than it would be to have been born many times. The whole thing is just a mystery right from the start. And that's what we're seeking. We're seeking this meaning. So then we get a scripture like, in the wise one is the one who sees inaction in action, and action in inaction. And generally speaking, I just kind of cut that one off of the reading and just put it over here, because it's almost impossible to say. It's hard to get the words out so you can even say it. So I went to Swami's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, which I have read many times. In fact, I've given classes on it. In fact, I've given classes right on this verse. In fact, I have my own notes right in there. But today I actually understood it because of words that Swami says there, which is also part of what I want to say. We don't learn like, oh, now I've got that one. Now I've figured that one out. Now I've settled that. We just circle around and my friend Purushottama wrote a book called The Physics of God, a very, very good book. Joseph Selby, his American name. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. And he talks literally about physics. And I say, you write so well about physics, I say to him, because while I'm reading it, I actually understand it. The instant I stop reading it, I can't remember or explain a word of it. But I did know it just for a split second. And that's what happens a lot of times when we read Scripture, just for a second, because the power is there. Many people who have a single devotion to Jesus read the Bible over and over again. I totally understand exactly why they would do that. I mean, I read the Bible often myself, but it's not the only Scripture that I read. But sometimes you're just in there with Scripture, whether it's the Gita or the Bible or whatever you're reading. If it's truly divinely inspired, your consciousness changes. And it's not really that you understand words. It's that your consciousness shifts because you're in relationship to a greater reality, which is the power of these masters. And when they put it into words, they're coming down to put it into words. When an intellectual person writing, I mean, I do a lot of writing, so I know, and what fun it is when you finally get it said just right. Ooh, that's so clever, you think, or that's just so clear. It's exactly what I want to say. But for the masters, they don't know it first in words. They know it from direct perception. All the saints and masters tell us, and sometimes we get a glimpse of it, this world is just not what it seems. That's all. It's just we have all these ideas and we're so convinced about them. Even the scientists, this is the physics of God, tell us that what we're looking at, that we're so persuaded is true, isn't. And that's what the masters have been saying all along. And then they try to give us words. I remember Swami Kriyananda standing here one of the many times that he went through this area and stopped in our temple and spoke to a room full of people here. And I would always sit in the front row in case he needed something, but also just because I liked sitting there. And for some reason, I was able to tune into his consciousness more that particular night. And I could feel what I believed to be true was that Swami would feel an inspiration, and the inspiration would not be these words. The inspiration would be a direct perception of some aspect of reality, and then he would project that perception as a vibration of consciousness. And vibration, by that I mean, we get more and more subtle. And what this whole world is energy, and it looks like matter to us because it's on a gross vibration, but simultaneously, the more subtle vibrations are happening. And how we see it, if everyone sees the reality according to what vibration they can perceive. And the masters perceive infinite vibration, so to speak. So I watched Swami just perceive a reality, a reality of the nature of God and the nature of our own consciousness. He would project that reality as a vibration. And we would first we'd receive the vibration, and then words would kind of come along after it. But the words were not really what we were receiving. And that's why so often when you're reading Scripture, and this is why people can spend a lifetime just reading the Bible, is because each time you read it, different passages, you get a different vibration from it, and you know something that you think is in the words, but it isn't. It's in yourself that the words have activated. So going back now all to this book that I have had for years of Swami's commentary on the Gita that has all my notes on the side, he describes very simple, it's only possible in action, which is to say stillness, absolute stillness, is only possible with God. That's what inaction is. We think of inaction as holding ourselves back from acting. But the act of holding yourself back is in itself an action. But true inaction is absolute stillness. When we've just stepped out of this constant duality, constant cause and effect of sowing and reaping like this, and that just in that absolute stillness of the divine. And so what the phrase is telling us is, in the midst of all of this, there is the absolute stillness of God. Because the verse says, wise is he who can see that at the heart of all action is stillness. At the heart of the action, which is being me and being you. This is our self. It always amazes me, and it has forever, that I wake up every morning and she's still there. You would think that, she would just get tired and go somewhere else. But she doesn't. I just wake up, although I've been traveling so much. And every night or every few nights we're someplace else, we're someplace else in some other bed. And it's a tremendous exercise in, 1,000 wonderful things, including just being in the now. I woke up in the room that I've been living in for like 15 years, and I thought, wow, this is nice. I wonder where this is. I thought, I recognize I recognize all the stuff that was in my suitcase, which is now piled in the middle of the floor. But it's a very nice feeling. Instead of just immediately all that energy that grabs and holds. This is who I am, this is where I am, this is what I need, this is what I do, these are the people I care about, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. Because that's action. Action isn't just moving your physical body. Action is anything other than stillness. But you see, this is the great secret of the power of the masters and of the great yogis. And I was referring to Swami Kriyananda last night, speaking of that he accepted whatever happened to him with calmness. Calmness is a way of saying it, but it's much deeper than calmness. It's from a superconscious perspective, which is, we're all running around and we all have to do these things. And all that we have sowed, we're now reaping. Or more than that, Divine Mother is sending us the experiences that we need so that we can finally just let it go and come to here. Because, I don't want that to happen. This is a bad thing that's happening. This is the one that I do want. Oh, now that I have it, I'm going to hold it. Constant, constant, constant. And what we're really looking for is just that one piece. That's where it's all coming back to. Just coming back into center. And, this is why we oscillate wildly when we're really attached. All these different moods and so on of having and not having and so on. And what we want to see even in the midst of that. And to a certain extent, that's one of the things that happened. This particular trip was different. And I've taken quite a few. This was longer and more complicated. And there was 3 of us who were the constant on the team. A gentleman named Atul, who lives in Houston, and a lovely lady named Kali, who lives at the village. Dambar was with us for a month, but not all the way through. So the 3 of us were constant, and then there was this revolving team of people from various places, depending on where we were, who all became wonderful friends. You can't drive together in a van filled with luggage, just crammed in like this for hours and hours and hours. Either you become really good friends, or you don't. In our particular case, we became really, really, really good friends. And every single day was good. And we just laughed. I got impatient once for 10 minutes when we were trying so hard to make something happen and other people had different opinions than mine about how it should be done. But I saw myself and I said, forget it, what do I care? But when you're in all that, like that, you're always moving, you're always doing something, you're always holding this huge amount of luggage. For those of you who saw the pictures, we were always taking pictures of our luggage because it was such an integral part of our life, was all this luggage and hauling it upstairs, 6 flights, sometimes repeatedly, up and down, and all of that. So much action is what I'm trying to say. But I was in a very privileged position because I was only really on when I had the microphone on. And the rest of the time, I was literally helpless a lot of times. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything about what was going on. So the habit of having an opinion might be there. But the practicality of having an opinion was, or the impracticality, because I couldn't do anything about anything or understand even what was supposed to happen. So you just surrender. And in a very real sense, it would be way beyond truth to say I went into the actionless state. No, I didn't do that. But I got to practice being closer. And like, just like something is going to happen, it's just going to be moved along. Why am I always oscillating? Why am I always saying I want this and I don't want that? I'm not in charge anyway. If you need to do something, it'll come to you. You'll be able to do it. You can't be passive. Passive is not inaction. Passive is restraint, restraining yourself. But to be dynamically ready and just open to whatever comes. You know? I remember when Swami Kriyananda was facing, it was actually silly. We were in the middle of some big crisis. I don't know, maybe it was when we were in all those years of litigation, or that Swami's life was always tumultuous in many ways externally. And he went to the dentist. And when he came back, I said, "Sir, what was the dental report?" He said, "Well, I don't have any cavities." I mean, it's pretty small. And I said that sort of fatuous phrase that people say, "Thank the Lord for little favors." Maybe they're trying to take your whole life's work away from you, but at least you don't have any cavities. That was like the balance I was saying. Absolutely stern. Sometimes when I said things to Swami that I thought were clever, he did not think they were clever. Absolute stern. He said like this, "I thank Divine Mother for everything." I mean, it was so important that he wouldn't even just let a silly remark that meant nothing to me, he wouldn't let it pass, because you can't let it pass. Because every time you give in to any thought or feeling or decision or response or reaction that contradicts what we really know to be true, you're undermining what? Your happiness. You're undermining your capacity to receive love. And we become lonely. Because Divine Mother is showering us at all times with everything we long for. I mean, that's why people love God. Because in the love for the divine is everything that our heart is longing for. But we're so busy doing other things that we literally don't notice. So it's not, yes, of course, the big decisions and the big actions and the big issues, but our lives are not really constructed of all of those things. I was looking at a Legos thing recently, and you make all those things out of tiny things. I've been in houses and stepped barefoot on Legos, so I know, that they are dynamic and they are small. But they're created piece by piece by piece, and you make something else. That's our consciousness. We are a Lego set. And no one part is ever unimportant in the eyes of God. Because at all times, we are creating a reality. And that reality is either, I thank Divine Mother for everything. Everything is a gift from her. I may not understand yet, but that doesn't mean it's not true. And that's the line we have to get across. We may not have the realization to be able to see what Divine Mother is doing, but if we pay enough attention to our experience, and if we're very, very, very careful and conscious about how we respond, we gradually build an interior castle. Just the interior castle is what St. Teresa of Avila called it. And you build it minute by minute by minute by minute. That's why Swami was so stern with me. And there was another incident with my friend Seva, and she was feeling, she had great sympathy for Swamiji sometimes when he was struggling, and there was some issue that was going on, and she started to say how unfair Divine Mother was. Why, you're such a good man, you're helping so many people. Why does she keep sending all these challenges? She had just started, and he knew what she was going to say. He said, don't say it. Not another word. That's who we need to be. Just don't say it. Speak to the voice inside her head. Don't say it. I may not understand, but I have experienced Divine Mother's love, and if it exists anywhere, it has to exist everywhere. So don't rely too much on the small part, on the little bitty words. Take the vibration. Listen to your soul. Rise to the occasion. And now we're starting, the birthday of Jesus. And during these times, the veil between the material and the spiritual world is thinner. And we get more for the same effort. And if we make great effort during this time to be in tune and to receive, just like St. John says in the Bible, to all who received him, speaking of Jesus, to them gave he the power to become the sons of God. Isn't that what we want? Bless you.
We'll have a moment of meditation.
Suddenly an angel host appeared with their songs, the solemn darkness cleared, and the shepherds awoke, God's host revered that night when Christ was born. The song they did sing, so wise and gentle that night when Christ was born. And the light of gilded light up high to the door, the angels in the sky. In his joy he opened his gate to fly that night when Christ was born. That night, the song they did sing, so wise and gentle that night when Christ was born. As he tried to chirp that holy name, suddenly his voice in music came, and with